Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Brandon. Welcome to Audio Addiction Week. Finally, it's album reviews. You can find our band interviews and find live coverage of the concerts that we get. I've been pretty busy, been posting a lot of interviews, so if you're a fan of that, awesome. But if you're a fan of more of my album review stuff and the live sets, those are coming. I've just been really busy collecting a lot of different stuff, so hopefully you'll be checking that out very soon. I'll also be doing like I said, a lot of reviews, this one included, as well as Void of Vision's newest record, Hyper Days. I'm hoping to get around to Cold Rain's newest record as well, and just a few others here and there. And I'm also doing a lot of local bands. So if any of those things caught your interest, make sure to subscribe, hit that thumbs up. It goes a long way, and more content to come as per usual. But tonight, we're going to be talking about Tiny Moving Parts' newest record, Breathe. So I want to give a massive shout outs to Natalie over at Big Picture Media. She has been the one that sends me a lot of the awesome stuff that I've been getting over the past couple years, and I just want to give her some love. But I've been a big fan of Tiny Moving Parts for a while now. I would say that I wasn't initially on board with a lot of their stuff, and I actually did a review of their previous record, Swell, so if you haven't checked that out, do so. But I was really excited for this record to come out because I really feel like they're a band that is coming up. They have a lot going for them, and they're also doing a headliner tour, so if you haven't checked that out yet, go do so. It's going to be happening in the fall time for most of the states, and then they're also doing a lot of international shows as well. But I'm going to go through each track, give you my thoughts and opinions on it, go through some pros and cons, and then finish it out with an overall rating. So the first track is called Midwest Sky. This one is just a killer math rock jam. I love this one. Every time that I come back and listen to it, this is the one that just kind of catches my ear. I've always been really impressed with how Dylan is able to sing and also really do some awesome guitar work, being very technically proficient, but also just kind of handling both very well. I'm excited to see how they do a lot of these new songs live, because I feel like they're a little bit more, I would say a little bit more relaxed, but they still have some really just interesting riffs going on there. But like I said, I love just technically how he does that. I think just the way that, they're arranged, I think that just the whole chemistry of the band just being kind of a three-piece, I think is really awesome. And you can hear just the camaraderie, and this is I believe their third record now, and it just feels like they keep progressing, they keep doing different stuff. And, it's interesting for me to listen to them after Swell, because I thought Swell was very good, but I know that they could do better and they could improve on it. So I'm curious to kind of see how the rest of the record plays out. But I love the drumming on this track. I think it's heavily understated. I feel like Billy, their drummer, is a fantastic drummer, and I know he gets a lot of love, but I feel like in the last review that I did, I didn't give him enough love and technical prowess. I think he does some really great work as well. But love the sort of twinkly clean guitar riffs. I think they really got it rocking with that. And I think this song has nice moments of softer bits, as well as some more technically more math rocky, a little bit heavier in that sense. And I love just the high energy that the choruses bring in this track. Definitely one to check out if you haven't already, just because I think it's a phenomenal track. So we're gonna move it into track number 2, which is Light Bulb. This one is also really good as well. I love the mix of kind of a little bit of emo, a little bit of pop punk, and a little bit of math rock, kind of a hybrid track. There's definitely hints of all three of those genres kind of mixed throughout, but obviously with the sort of math rocky parts, Dylan does some really nice tapping lead parts in the verses, and I really think they as well bring the energy in this track. I think it's a nice follow-up to Midwest Sky, and the inclusion of piano and kind of the overall layering throughout the entire record is really thoughtful, and I think it really adds a lot to I feel like the track kind of starts out bare bones, but once they add a lot of layers and they're able able to add in piano or like violin or some other instruments like banjo or harmonica that they go into a little bit later on in the record. I think it really makes a lot of these songs very interesting, just not only from I think a reviewer's perspective, but also from somebody who listens to their music. I think they bring a lot of different stuff in this record in its entirety, and this is definitely one of those ones that highlights that. So we're gonna move into track number 3, which is Medicine. This is the first single that was released, and they announced their signing to Hopeless, which is awesome. Congrats, guys, if you watch this. But I think this one was really a grower track. I didn't really like it at first, especially just being the single. I thought it was, I thought it was sufficiently catchy. And I didn't think there was anything wrong, particularly with the track. It was just something a little bit different from me to kind of come into a little bit being a little bit more softer, a little bit more melodic. I felt like a lot of their stuff was a lot more high energy. It was a little bit more aggressive in like maybe not a angry way, but just a little bit more punchy to, their writing style. And this one definitely was a little bit slower, a little bit softer, and kind of took me by surprise. But I think as I listened to it more, it got better and better, and I think it definitely fits in with the whole vibe of the record. There are some songs that are a little bit more on that melodic side that definitely pull a lot from indie influence, but also, I would say probably like the last minute of the song is my favorite, just because it feels the most math rock. It feels the most tiny moving parts, but I have to give it credit where credit is due, and I feel like in this track, they did a really great job of structuring it out. It builds over time, and I think the inclusion of just like different little layers, like they have some like synths going on, and I think it is very cool to see a band kind of experiment with their, obviously they had their core sound, but also kind of incorporating different aspects into their songwriting, and I think that this kind of does that pretty well. I think there are some songs on the record that do it a little bit better, but I think this one is a very solid one. I would have to get back to you on whether or not it's going to be one of my favorites or not on the record, but I would say overall it's one of those ones that kind of sits in the middle of the pack for now. So we're going to move into track number 4, which is Icicles Morning Glow. This one is a very good one as well. I think this one's probably one of the more aggressive tracks. It has a lot more grit to it, it has a little bit more of a punch to it. I love the group vocals in the chorus. I think it adds a lot to the sort of extra energy of the track, and it's a unique layer that I feel like they utilize very well, and in certain parts of the tracks. This one definitely kind of rides the balance of a little bit heavier, a little bit more melodic, a little bit heavier, a little bit more melodic. There's this nice counterbalance between it, and I think it balances out the song where it's just not just, super aggressive energy. It kind of mellows out those heavier parts, which is definitely nice. I also like that they did or they got Jetty Bones vocalist. I don't know her name because I'm didn't do my research very well, but she is fantastic. I know she was also on Swell as well, and I know people had pointed it out to me, so I feel like I wanted to give her some justice as a vocalist, even though I can't remember her name. But she just add some really cool like female parts in there, and I think that this song maybe didn't utilize her the best. There are some other songs that she's on this record, but I think that this one does it pretty well, but just definitely not one of my tops in terms of that. I think this one definitely, in terms of memorability, has that strong sort of an emotional punch to it. It is one of those songs that I feel like when I'm listening to it, it has that connection. I feel like Dylan has more of a connection to this song, and you can definitely hear it in kind of the vocal prowess and the vocal writing and styling of this song. So we're going to move into track number 5, which is Vertebrae. This is the most recent single. They released a music video for it, but this one was different. I think in comparison to all 3 of the singles that had been released at the time, this one was very, very interesting to me, and I think it still is. but I think it's extremely well done, and I think it's very different from what they typically do. I mean, obviously, it has that tiny moving parts flair to it, but they definitely tried and experimented and did stuff that was different, which I appreciate. And that was I feel like one of my weak points of Swell was that they didn't do a lot to kind of branch out, do stuff that's different. I felt like they kept very much in their wheelhouse with that record. While it is good, I think that they do this one that much better. And a lot of the songs that I feel like were maybe kind of middle of the road for me on this record would probably be some of my favorites off of Swell, if they left them on there, obviously. But I love the soft, sort of ambient, clean tone. I think it is very phenomenal throughout just a majority of the song. And I think this what makes the song for me is just the inclusion of different instruments. For example, they have some violin that kind of comes in midway, and then I know towards the end of the song they definitely have some violin parts. I know Matt does some vocals, and those were really highlighted well. I think they were highlighted better than in other songs. If he had some vocal parts, I feel like this one felt like the most stand outish, if that's even a word, because I just made it up. But I feel like he feels the most connected to this song for sure. I love the layers that they put on there, and probably the coolest thing that I was definitely not expecting when I listened to this song was banjo. They added banjo at 2 minutes and 35 seconds to around the 3 minutes and 5 second mark. It was very inventive. I thought it was very unique. I thought, obviously there's a lot of like folk bands do that, bluegrass bands do that. But to kind of see it in their perspective, I thought was very unique. And, I don't think there's a lot of other bands that are in this genre that are doing that. So, congrats to them. I thought the parts worked out very well, and it was just something that was instantly memorable for me when I listened to this song. So we're going to move into track number 6, which is Polar Bear. This one, I feel like fits very much in the tiny moving parts camp. Solidly written. I think it has some really great energy to it, but again, it's not something just like off the wall, something you wouldn't expect from the band. I feel like it's very much in their wheelhouse, and solidly executed. So we're going to move into track number 7, which is Bloody Nose. This is the second single, I believe, that they released, and this one's one of my favorites as well. I would say that Bloody Nose and Vertebra are probably my two favorites out of the singles. I know that they only released 3, and that's 2/3 of the singles, but I think this was really just well executed. I love the riffs. I think that some of them really flew under the radar. One of my favorite riffs off the record was from the 1 minute and 13 second mark to around the 1 minute and 23 second mark. I think Dylan has some really fantastic writing, and that after that riff, I think it's like the pre-chorus, is really solid as well. I love those riffs going on in that track, and a lot of the stuff that when I'm listening to records, like the guitar playing is something that sticks out to me the most as a player. And so I love kind of picking out those sorts of parts as well, and just like really kind of like dissecting them and thinking about them and kind of like incorporating them into if I start writing music and stuff. But I think this one was, again, really solid, combines a lot of the aspects of what I love throughout this record so far. It has some really softer moments throughout, but it also has some really kind of like heavy, a little bit more aggressive, more on the rock side of things. And, I think the structure works extremely well in this track. And if you haven't seen the music video, it's very cool. I love it. They're always like super inventive with what they do with music videos, so check that one out if you haven't already. But the next track off the record is Soft Spot, and no pun intended, I do have a soft spot for this track because it's one of my favorites. I would say it is easily the best track off the record. I think it was just well executed. Just the riff writing on this one was probably my favorite off the entire record as well. And I also like that they included Jetty Bones, their vocalist as well. She offers a little bit of vocals in this track as well. And some of the riffs remind me a lot of Dance Gavin Dance, which is another big band that I love, if you're familiar with the channel. But I think the chorus is an absolute ripper. But probably the biggest thing about this track that I think that a lot of people people should just check the track out for in general is that I think Billy does some fantastic drumming on this song. Super underrated. I think he's an understated hero on this track. And as well as their bass player, I think he does a fantastic job as well. And they're just holding down the rhythm section, and I love that because you don't really hear that too often in a lot of songs, and I think it just works out. It has some really great hooks to it, vocally as well, and I think they're really just firing on all cylinders on this track. And again, if I could recommend any track off this record, it'd definitely be this one. So we're gonna move into track number 9, which is I Can't Shake. This one's one of my favorites as well. I think a lot of people will be surprised that I like this one. I think it is very different for what they do. I think very much in line of the way that I feel about Vertebrae. It's just unique. It's something different. It's a little bit slower. It's definitely original, like I had mentioned, very indie. And I think probably the biggest thing about why I like this track the most is that it just feels very emotional. I think it pulls a lot from why I like Icicles in that respect, in terms of just the emotional prowess of its song. I think they really, are able to show that off and maintaining kind of their inventiveness as a band. Like I had mentioned earlier, they included harmonica in this track, and I think that was another really cool addition that, again, took me by surprise because I was like listening through the first time and I was like, that sounds like harmonica. That's ridiculous. That's so cool. And, it's cool to see them do different things, branch out, have different kind of modes that they, and different kind of instrumentation that they put in their songs. I'd love to see how they kind of, continue further on and do different things and be more inventive, because I think they really brought it with this one. So we're going to move into track number 10, the last track, Hallmark. And this one's one of my favorites as well. I think it is a perfect example of taking a lot of the new elements of a record and kind of combining it with old stuff to kind of round out a record. They really just kind of put their own spin on, what I would assume is kind of like a very solid Tiny Moving Parts song, but just the way that they go about it, the structure, the arrangement, I think is very well executed, and I think that it really highlights a lot of what they do as a band. And again, I think it's a perfect example of kind of taking those elements that were kind of like sprinkled out throughout the entire record into one last song off the record to kind of close it out. So just to speak on just the song itself, I think it had really great energy, and again, it's the things that you expect from Tiny Moving Parts, but kind of in the lens of their newest record, Breathe. So some pros and cons. I'll start off with the cons. I think vocally they do a solid job. It's not anything to write home about. I think Dylan is a solid vocalist. I think Matt's a solid vocalist, but I'd love to hear some more experimentation on that side. They have some really unique riffs. They have some really unique instrumentation throughout this record. I think that for vocals, I think that if they were to equally have interesting vocals along with interesting instrumentals, I think that this one would be very much in the contention of top 10 of my favorites of this year. Not to discount it at all. I think that they did a phenomenal job vocally. I just feel like harmonization would be really awesome, and I don't think there are too many math rock bands that kind of do that, and I think it would definitely separate them from the pack for sure. And it's just I'm a big harmonizer fan. I love harmonies, and I think that they could definitely execute it very well and make it interesting. So some pros and cons. I think that the record is fairly inventive. Like I had mentioned before, there's some violin, there's some banjo, there's some harmonica. The riffs are very unique. And I think that they do a good job of kind of incorporating all of them, because if I just told you all of that now and you had not listened to the record, I feel like most people would be like, that's kind of nuts. But somehow, some way, they are able to do that and kind of make unique riffs, make unique songs, and I think they did a really great job of that. I think they did a great job experimenting, trying different things, trying maybe a slower song, maybe a little bit more aggressive, more faster song. Went with like more of a happier song, like with Soft Spot. It definitely has more of a pop feel to it, and I know that they had went to a producer that does Jimmy Eats World, stuff like that. So it definitely borrows a lot from alternative indie music, stuff like that. And you can hear a lot of those elements throughout the record. And I know that they have worked with their producer that they've been doing with since the very beginning as well. And there's some, originality and camaraderie in that as well. But I also feel like this record has a lot of stuff for returning fans. If you dug Celebrate, if you dug Swell, I think you'll definitely like this record. I think you'll like it more if you didn't like Swell as much. I think you'll like this one more. And I think it's pretty. I mean, I haven't listened to Celebrate in a little bit, so I might have to go back and do my homework. But I feel like it is on par with Celebrate, and I think that they really did a unique job of kind of making the songs interesting, fresh, and I thought they brought it on this record for sure. So my overall rating for Tiny Moving Parts, Breathe, I'm going to be giving it a 9.6 out of 10. I definitely feel like this is a band you should check out if you've been sleeping on them. Go give them a listen. I think they did a fantastic job on this record, and it's definitely in contention for Album of the Year for sure. I think they just, had some really hot tracks, and I'm excited to see them live, and fingers crossed we do an interview because that'd be super sick. But let me know in the comments what you think about the record. It's been out for a few days. It came out on Friday last week, so if you haven't checked it out yet, check the links in the description to find out about Tiny Moving Parts. If they hit a city near you, go out and see them. They're going to be out with Fredo Disco. They're homies of Audio Addiction, love those guys. And then also as well, other homies, Standards, Marcos, congrats my dude, love you. And you should definitely check that tour out if that's coming to a city near you. But let me know what your favorites are in the comments, and if you enjoyed this review, make sure to like, share, subscribe. It goes a long way, and it means an absolute ton. Thank you guys so much for your support. I don't take it for granted whatsoever, and more album reviews, more interviews, more live content to come, and I hope to be talking with you soon. My name is Brandon. We hope you got your fix, and we'll be seeing you soon. Peace. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Of course, if you enjoy what we do, make sure to go check out the other series we do. We do album reviews, we do band interviews, and we do live videos, so definitely go check that out. Hit that subscribe button. It really helps out our channel, helps us grow. Make sure to hit that like button as well. Go follow us on social media. That's all down below. We try to keep that as updated as possible. We also made a new website where we'll be posting photos of upcoming concerts and stuff like that, which you can go check out at audioaddictionmedia.com, and come get your fix with us, guys. Talk to you later. Deuces.